Okay, this video commences my war coverage of both the InTheDark and Crucible Wrath clan wars. So I've got lots of replays to work through, but as is usual on my channel, it's not really about showing replays. It's about understanding what's going on in the game, what are the latest attack and what are the latest defense strategies, and seeing what we can learn from the best players in the game. Just to start, I thought the best way to start would be to start with a video where my base gets cracked. But before I dive in, I should just give a big congratulations to both Crucible Wrath and InTheDark. They're in fine form, particularly Crucible Wrath. They've clearly put their top team back together, and they're hitting really well. It's awesome to see them warring like that, and I think they'll give the top spots a shake again based on the form that we saw. Also InTheDark, a fine war. It was really good to see. I had a quick browse on the various war threads after the war. It's good to see nice positive comments between the clans after the wars, and that's sort of the way I sort of like to see these wars hardly fought and all good afterwards. Now, what I wanted to do first is, I've just done a Lavaloon defense video. I wanted to just share what I'm doing around just how can we create some innovations in defense, because I think if people are designing bases, this is the type of stuff you need to be doing in terms of if you want to create something innovative. Now, I understand that the top clans, they're not going to be probably innovating much on bases. It's too risky. The top clans, it makes sense for them to run fairly standard bases and proven bases and take low risk moves as possible. Otherwise they're risking 3 stars. But if you want to create something new, you've got to take risks, and I just wanted to share the types of things I'm doing in terms of looking for what might be a different base style that might be better than the status quo. So in terms of any base strategy, in terms of the strategy, I guess the trick is always in the execution. So here's an example of what I'm doing is taking the main bits of your air defense, your whiz towers, your air defenses, and your infernos, and just playing around with patterns and seeing what might be a good foundation for a defense strategy. So here's one of them. So this one runs centered air defenses. Air defenses are critical in your air defense strategy, and by centering them, I figure that might make them mighty difficult to hybrid if I protect them well with walls. So maybe running a strategy like this, you might maybe you lose your queen, an inferno, and an air defense, but you might end up with 3 air defenses, and particularly 2 air defenses which are really deep, which obviously got to try and freeze. But that's a potentially interesting strategy, because it makes some interesting choices. Maybe you've got to carry 2 freezes, providing you keep that inferno out of freeze range of those 2 ADs. So that's one pattern I've been thinking about. Let's have a look at another pattern. I'm just playing around with ideas at the moment. So this is another one. So this strategy here is based around deep whiz towers. You've got issue potentially with whiz tower and inferno freezing there, but I've also run a triangle here. So this is worth clicking on. So if you look at the queen, you'd have to hybrid probably. Well, to get that inferno, you've probably got to go quite deep. If you put a lot of walls and high hit point buildings here and a lot of fire through here and here, the hybrid to get the queen and an inferno, you can make it difficult. So that's probably a base where you're trying to defend the hybrids, and then you've got shallow air defenses. Now, shallow air defenses have some issues in themselves. You've got to defend the air defense as well with lots of defense around and but that's another pattern I'm playing with. And then a third one, which was a base, just the shape I developed a couple of weeks ago, and I've been busy, so I haven't really played around with it that much. Is the one I ran against Crucible, which is so I've got an 8 shape, whiz tower, inferno, whiz tower, inferno, whiz tower. But what that does is, because to keep the air defenses out of whiz tower range, as you can see I've got all 4 sides, what that does is that pushes the air defenses to the corners. And so this is the challenge with this base, is how do you fit all these sort of major air defense weapons in a way that keeps whiz towers potentially deep, but doesn't push your air defenses to a point where they're just easy to pick off. So the way I address that is probably compromise the base, and it came back to bite me, is with having shallow whiz towers, sorry, air defences, what I did is I ended up putting walls, you know, so say you could just drop some giants and some wizards, and the wizards could just take down the air defence. Also put some defences, so you couldn't just drop hogs and they would go through and take out the air defence. So if you drop your hogs, you can't get them. You know, just a simple giant whiz can't get them. So you probably got to, you know, sacrifice a king or something like that if you want to take out one of the corner air defences. So the trouble with that strategy is that chewed up a lot of wall in each of my corners, and what that did is that left my base with fairly, if you look in the center, you'll see it's only got 3 pockets because I've had to use a lot of wall on the outside, just making sure my air defenses are protected. Now 3 pockets is not enough for your center, and you'll see in the replay where I got attacked that they've you know, good players have seen that weakness, jumped on it, and taken advantage of it. Typically, you'll see bases these days running, you know, 5, 6, 7, even 8 pockets in the centre. 8 might be overkill, but you know, you don't see 3, and 3 is a weakness. And smart player jumped on it and put pain on the base. The other thing I'll notice, just touch on in the base before we'll go into replays, is you design a base for like a primary defense, like a Lavaloon defense, but you've also got to keep secondary defenses in mind to, you know, the types of attacks you're going to see, like go away balloon, or even like a hog attack. Now the way I tend to do a secondary defense for hogs, okay, look, this base was primarily just a sort of a balloon concept base, actually, just sort of testing out whether I could get that to work. But the typical approach I use to hogs is I'll put a double bomb trap at sort of not too shallow that you can trigger it with just some hogs, but sort of deep enough that if you just chuck in a hybrid, the hybrid's not going to, if it gets to the centre, take out both sets of double bombs. So that's the way I typically run sort of a secondary defense for hogs, is I'll have a good double bomb trap at either sides of the base. Now, in terms of designing my loon defense here, I've made a sacrifice. My hog traps aren't ideal. Like if you look at the pathing between, say in the north, between that bow and the whiz tower, and in the south between the whiz tower and the telsar, probably the pathing in the south is best, but the thing with double bomb traps, you need to keep them simple and not have the possibility of hogs pathing off the wrong building. And the other reason this base fell is because the double bomb traps aren't nice and simple. And so what happened is the player can make an adjustment, and he made the hogs ran in the south from the bow to the telsar rather than from the whiz tower to the telsar. That means his hog bunt survived because he only set up 1 giant bomb, and that's why the base fell. So it's very easy to get overly focused on your Lavaloon defense and forget the simple but really important tricks that defend you against other defense types. And for hogs, like the answer is you need semi-shallow or semi-deep, semi-shallow double bomb traps on either side of the base at a point where you can't trigger them from the outside, but the hybrid can't sort of jump between the 2 traps in the middle. I didn't keep them simple, and that's why the base fell to hogs. So enough on covering the base. Let's dive into So this is the first attack on my base in the Dark War, and it's by Dizzy the Great. And what you'll see is, and this is an interesting thing from a defense point of view, is, you know, when there's an issue called, there's a thing called in insurance called adverse selection, and the idea is that if you design to defend one thing and the other party has a choice, that they'll pick the other. And that happens in Clash of Clans as well. Like, so if you design a defense that's very hard for loons, likelihood is that people with Lavaloons just won't hit you with Lavaloons. They will hit you with something else, and that's always a challenge in defense, which is you design for one thing, if it's too strong on that, they will hit you with the other, and that's what's happened here. So this base got hogged. As I've mentioned earlier in the vid, what they do is take advantage of the unpocketed center, only 3 pockets in the center, and Now the other thing I'll just touch on is, just because they hogged it doesn't mean it's impossible to lava this design. It might be possible. Like, I think it's the trouble is I haven't had much testing of it. Like, I've been running it 3 weeks and I've only been hit by balloons once, and that was just a 2-star attempt with the loons on the queen side and heroes on the other. You're never going to 3. So the trouble with it's been difficult to get some sense of how this base is going, because people aren't hitting it with loons. Which means it might be very good for people trying to avoid losing a base to Lavaloons at the moment. It might still be a very useful base, because you'll see that this raid isn't an easy raid. I think this raid was 15 hours into the war, so clearly they'd done a lot of studying of the base before they were happy to sort of undertake a raid, and so it's not an easy base. Now let's have a look at how Dizzy attacked this base. So firstly, what they do is they do a golem lure with a wizard behind. So I haven't quite got a centered CC. I'm centering my queen and my CC, sort of half-half. But a golem is enough to draw it out there. Don't have enough walls to stop a golem coming in without some wall breakers. But a 34-point lure, a 30 unit lure is not bad. 1 to the draw, and then they'll just do a standard sort of CC kill in the corner. Now, one of the challenges of really spread out bases, and you'll see this, is by spreading out the defences. I don't know how to explain this concept. By spreading out the defences a lot, you'll see that it almost makes the golems more effective, because the golems aren't under heavy fire when everything's spread out. And so I think you get a bit more value for your hybrid stage if you've got a more spread out base, which makes sense to do from a Lavaloon point of view, but from a defending, you'll see here Hogs, they got more value they got a lot of value from the hybrid stage with a sort of spread out Lavaloon defense. Now, this is cool. Okay, no, that's fine. So you can see what they've done there is jump here. And what that jump has done is, because you've only got 3 pockets center, that opens up this pocket with this Inferno, this pocket with this Inferno. So with one jump, they can get access to 2 Infernos, and that puts the base under sort of heavy pressure by that stage. That they've tackled a base where most of the hybrid defenses around here, most of the heavy hit point buildings, a lot of the defense. So, but it still costs them a lot to do, right? 2 golems, a whole lot of wizards, and this type of thing. So they've, this type of hybrid, there's not a lot enough left for a Lavaloon attack. But I'm trialing it with still 4 spells with Hogs. That's plenty. So use the rage there to get through, and with the rage and the heroes, that's enough to take out that Inferno. And then the queen sort of plugs through, takes down this, and now the Hog drop comes through. So so do an early heal, sort of keep the Hogs nice and healthy. He hasn't got many Hogs. So queen hitting the bow. Well, what happens is the Hogs come through here, pass through here, and in this defense the Hogs hit the double bomb trap. So this is an example of the double bomb trap working. Boom, loses half of his Hogs. The rest of the Hogs haven't got enough to make it around the rest of the base, and so that's an example of, despite the problems with the hybrid, a double bomb trap saved you. Saved me in that instance, because it's killed enough Hogs that you sort of don't make it all the way around the base, and we won't go through all the replay, but you get the idea. The double bomb trap killed enough Hogs that as a secondary defense the base held. So the third attack on the base by InTheDark was by Omar, and this base had quite a bit of hogging, because I think it got attacked 6 times by Crucible, somehow held with 6 hog attacks. So I knew it was hoggable, but just didn't have time to replace it prior to this war. So this is Omar, and what's interesting here is how does he correct for the fact Hogs, the second raid they did exactly the same as the first. Hogs passed through here between the Wiz Tower and the Tesla, hit the double bomb trap, they all died. So how does he correct for that? Now, he had 2 options, right? One was he could have let his dropped his Hogs a bit later and hoped his queen took out that Wiz Tower, because if the queen takes out the Wiz Tower, then Hogs path around here and he doesn't trigger the double bomb. The other, what he chose to do, I thought was nifty, is he used one of his spells, dropped his Hogs earlier, and therefore the Hogs pass through to the bow, the whiz tower, but then to the bow, and then when they pass from the bow to the Telstar, they only trigger off one bomb. And this is a really important lesson. If you want to set your double bomb traps, keep the trap simple. It needs to be one building, and you can't sort of vary which building the Hogs path from. And you can see here, because I've put the bow in the center, I've provided an avenue where through a tweak in the attack he could direct his bombs from the whiz tower to the bow through here, trigger one bomb and get the base. So now we won't go through all the sort of beginning because it's all the same stuff. Same lure, same draw, drops 2 golems, opens the pocket, golems come in, drops the jump in the same place, all the same rage. And now this is where it gets interesting. So Queen's sort of working her way through. But what he does is, in terms of the raid, he drops his Hogs earlier. So his Hogs are coming in now. You can see the cannon's going. Queen is still working away on this. Hogs will pass through. Queen, and because the Hogs are coming into Inferno range, he uses a freeze there, so the Hogs don't take the Inferno damage by dropping them earlier. And by dropping them earlier, the Queen hasn't quite killed the bow. And so Queen's hitting the bow, who's close on the timing, but because the bow wasn't down, the Hogs path to the bow only hit the one bomb, and so therefore the base falls to the Hogs. So look, I think there's two takeaways from that. If you're the better you make your base for Lavaloon defense, the less likely you are to get hit by Lavaloons. So the better your base is for Lavaloon defense, the more you need to concentrate on making sure your secondary defense is going to hold. So I think that's one lesson from this. The second lesson from this is I think that it's just too risky to go 1, 2, 3 pockets in the middle. You need to be thinking at least 4, probably 5 pockets for the middle of your base. Otherwise, you open your base too much up for the hybrid. So I think they're the main 2 takeaways from that in terms of the how to defend. But anyway, great attack there by legendary Omar. I think some credit should go to Payam. I think he, from what I heard, he had some great ideas on how to crack the base, and so just all credit to him. I don't get cracked very often. And yeah, I knew the base was vulnerable. He had 6 Hogs attack from Crucible, but I don't get cracked often, and all credit to these guys for doing it.